Welcome to NoFo Studios. Today I have Chris, Joey, and Vin from Small Town Values. Vin, what are we discussing today?
Doug, thanks for having us on NoFo Studios. Today we're going to be discussing responsible hunting, which I feel is an important topic in small towns across our country, especially in our communities. Unfortunately, we see a lot of vehicle accidents and a lot of dead deer on the side of the road, which is why I have asked our guest to come on the show, is because the person who pretty much taught me how to hunt, I was very fortunate, is Chris Dorosky. Chris, I'd like to start with you. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, and thanks for having us tonight. I was born on a soybean farm on the eastern shore of Virginia and moved to Mattituck at about 3 years old. I have lived between Jamesport and Mattituck for 50 of the last 59 years, and I just recently finished working 30 years at the same company, driving around the North and the South Fork in a cement mixer. So I consider myself very local. I know the area very well.
Thanks, Chris. We also
Have Joey with us here today.
Joe, tell us about yourself.
So I'm Joe. I guess I'm an avid outdoorsman, like Chris is going to get into too. Hunting, fishing, grew up doing it all. I run a fishing charter boat now here, grew up here, born in Mattituck, raised in Mattituck. And I also started a deer processing business.
That's awesome.
Where people just bring, hunters shoot deer, whether they don't have the facility to do it at their house. I know a lot of guys do like to, but they also just bring them to me. And
I think that's great because that's the hardest thing. It's like it's one thing to want to go hunting, but a whole different thing if you want to learn how to process.
Well, it's a whole other animal.
You're right.
It's like you do all the work to get it done, and then you're like, man, now I have this deer. I'm like, what do I do with it?
Right.
Another whole journey.
Can I ask you a crazy question? If you live on the North Fork, you've pretty much seen a deer hit or you've hit a deer. Can you, and this is crazy, but are they ruined? Like once a deer gets hit, like people eat that?
I don't take the roadkills.
Yeah. I'm just curious because you see it happening all the time, unfortunately. There's always a deer on the side of the road, especially on 48 or the main road.
So sad.
Yeah, I do. I take them occasionally, and it depends on how they're hit.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it depends on how you hit them.
Yeah. Sometimes the meat is ruined and sometimes it's not.
Okay. Yeah, because it's such a waste.
And you have to know if it's fresh.
Mhm.
And yeah.
You know what you're doing. I'm sorry, but I was just curious because I see it all the time.
Good question. A lot of people
I've taken a few people who've brought them to me, but it all depends on, like Chris said, how they're hit, where they're hit, how big they are. Like people have, taken it to me and all just the bruising that goes on immediately.
Right.
Like you'll ruin half of it. And if, unfortunately people do hit the small ones too.
Right.
And because people pay me to do it. So they're like, they're going to get not that much for, the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And it makes it much more of a chore for me to clean it up as well.
How do you learn? Listen, how do you learn how to butcher, to do it for other people? That's a whole nother process. Like, did you start doing it as a kid?
Now, to be honest with you, I went to school for data analytics.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I see how college degrees really stick with us.
I should have never went, but
Yeah.
No, the life I live now is completely 180 degrees from the track that I was going on. But to be honest with you, I started hunting and I was like,
loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it. So I got on YouTube, and I remember I literally learned everything on YouTube, everything I know
it's
between
so crazy
hands-on
today.
experience, and I have a YouTube education on this. But I remember the first deer that I shot, I was skinning it out off of a tree, in my backyard, in
the guy on
fishing,
your YouTube
rubber
channel would
slicks.
do. Yeah.
And my dad comes home and is like, what are you doing? I'm like, I really don't know. And my mom, thank God that she is a saint, I'm pushing meat through her KitchenAid mini grinder attachment. I'm messing the whole kitchen.
But you were determined, and that's what's awesome. I think today we're so lucky to live in a days, where you can learn anything instantly online. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I assume though for Chris, Chris, I got to ask you because obviously I don't think you had YouTube when you started hunting. How did you learn how to do all this stuff?
Well, actually, I've I'm a newbie at hunting. I meant to look at my books before I came here. This is going to be my 9th or 10th season.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
And yep, and I did want to just throw out there that anything Joe and I may say about hunting, we're not representing any other hunters. Or
Understood.
groups. We're just speaking our own opinions from our own experiences.
It's important. Thank you, Chris.
And I would like to explain why I hunt, which is different than why I harvest deer. I had said to a gentleman one time, asked him if he hunted, and he said, "No, I don't hunt because I love animals." And I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have. And I like to kind of explain myself a little bit with some examples. I was sitting in a tree stand with my wife one afternoon, and a fox came walking in and laid down on a mound of grass and took a nap for a half an hour. And, you never know what you're going to see.
Yeah,
it's the
beautiful.
things, I usually keep my bow on my lap. I've had a bird land on my bow and just stand there. I've had squirrels climb up the back of my tree. I have a picture on my phone. I had a baby owl. I've seen owls. I've never seen a baby owl. I had one land on a crabapple tree branch, head high. I was like 18 feet in a tree sitting, and it landed 10 feet in front of me and just sat there and stared. We just stared at each other.
It's wild.
And I had birds, black birds with swarms that were so heavy when they came in or left, it actually blacked out the sun. Wow. It got dark. I mean, where do you see that? It's just,
Right.
there's no place that I feel more comfortable and at ease than in the woods. And that's why I like to hunt, but that's not why I harvest deer.
I love that. Well, I'll tell you, so recently I did a procedure where I did the bariatric sleeve. So they cut out like 75% of your stomach, lost 75 pounds in the last 60 days. And I could tell you that not eating meat is insanity because, I basically just have been eating just Premier protein shakes and like clean food, and it's got to be pureed. But I could tell you, when people said to you before, and this is what made me think of it, when they said, well, I love animals, I don't kill them. Listen, you can't get any purer than eating something that's living and growing in the wild, and it's organic, it's not processed, and it's clean food.
Well, it's like the people who did it long before us. Like, that's what they did.
Yeah,
too.
right. So and it goes back to...
There was no supermarket and people taking care of it for you. You had to go get it.
Exactly. And I could tell you that not eating and not chewing for 60 days of anything besides basically yogurt.
But you're weak.
You are not the same. Like mentally, we're carnivores. We're instinctively, for millions of years, we've been hunters. We've been, we gathered food, we ate it. And when you take out something from your diet that you're very accustomed to, now I'm a steak guy, right? Mm-hmm. Not having steak, not having chicken. I'm telling you, I love animals too, but I also love the nutrition they give. Right. I love the fact that we're lucky enough to be able to live in a place where we can get fresh produce. There's like 8 Hands Farms. We can go there, and there's places we can get things and meats and poultry. And I agree with you when you said there's a beauty to being able to go out and hunt. There's a value in being able to teach the next generation how to hunt and how to survive. Especially kids today, like my own son, I want to teach him how to hunt. We have a farm, but we don't hunt on it. Obviously he spends his time on YouTube and then, whatever he's doing on his phone. But there's so many things that obviously you guys can go into, but hunting is a very important skill. It's something that was father to son or father to daughter taught down. And over the generations, moms taught their kids how to hunt, and it was very important for survival. And today, like you said, we're so accustomed just going to a store, picking it up, and we don't even know where it was made or how it was raised.
What they ate.
And we just feed our families with it. We're like, oh, that's good, but we didn't kill it. So since we didn't kill it, it's okay.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I'm just saying, because it really hit home what you said, especially a guy who hasn't had any texture in 60 days of we're carnivores. Remember that. Yeah. Okay. We need to chew. We need to eat.
We're meant to do that.
We're meant to eat real food. And if you don't believe me, spend the next 60 days on Premier Protein shakes and yogurts, and I guarantee you'll be craving something to chew on, something with texture. And well, that's all I wanted to say about that. But I just wanted to go on about that.
I've read that if you have a medical condition that you're not supposed to eat red meat, that you can eat venison because it's so lean and healthy. Now, don't take my word for it. Ask your doctor before you do that. But I've read this.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, venison tastes like when it's prepared.
Right.
Like people said, oh, I don't like, I don't eat deer, and I'm like, yeah, I think it depends who's making it. You know, like anything else. But
Well, a lot of it's how the animal's cared for too, from what I've noticed.
The way
Is that
it's
right?
processed.
Everybody, well, not even that. It's like, when you shoot one and you have to, take the guts out and everything, like it has to be like immediate. Like you can't let those sit in there.
Is
You
that
have to
right?
take everything out. Yeah. I have a lot of people who drop stuff off to me where they'll leave stuff in there, and I put it in the walk-in for like, no matter if because after you shoot it, you want to get it down to cool temperature
okay,
as quick as you can, as far as like bacteria growth and all of that. That's just, and even in restaurants everywhere,
Right.
that's just the standard.
okay.
I believe it's like 72 degrees or whatever down to 42 in,
A certain amount.
I think it's like 3 hours, but don't quote me. I don't know
I got you.
exactly what it is. But you'll notice when people bring me something fresh and it's gutted, they all come to me gutted,
Okay.
and I put it in my walk-in. You can hang it in there for, 5-10 days, however long you really want to. But after 2 days, you'll notice all of the meat around where they left. You can tell it's starting to
That-
spoil
wow.
that quickly.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
very fast.
Wow.
Very interesting.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. I was always curious because, like you said,
It happens quick, and that's where the gaminess comes from.
That's right.
So venison is not naturally gamey.
Right.
Because if you go buy venison from New Zealand where they farm it,
It's about how you learn.
it's great.
It's fantastic.
Because it's all farmed and organized, and they
Right.
run
There's
it
a
like they run
process.
a
It's
USDA
not
facility.
some
Yeah.
people coming out and just shooting.
They have the ability to
They dispatch it right there,
dispatch it and
and
put
then
it
they,
right in the walk.
it's immediately
Right,
gutted and skinned and
washed
hung in the
and
walk
hosed off.
and hosed off everything.
Right. So, but out in the wild, we don't have
You don't have that.
opportunity. So, I did learn the right way.
You did. You were
Well,
trained
of
by
course.
Chris.
Well, Chris and another friend out there, Mike Rowley, he's helped me dispatch and harvest a couple deer as well. So you learn the right way. You have to have water. You have to have your rubber gloves, have your knives available, ready, sharp, right? Skin it. You know what? Here's what I'm gonna do, Chris. Why don't you tell us the right way after you locate your deer? Tell us what you do.
Well, basically, you need to gut the animal as quickly as possible, and it needs to be done in the right way, so you don't open anything up. And
So what do you have with you? So
anything.
you locate your deer. You go back. Tell me, you took me back to the truck. You get your sleigh or your tell us.
Yeah, I use a cart for dragging deer because I feel it's more respectful to the animal rather than just dragging it on the ground. But that's just me. But I have a small saw for opening the rib cage, and just a nice sharp knife for pulling out the intestines. And but I spoke about why I like to hunt. I'd like to touch on why I actually harvest deer. And I spoke with John Fab from Oregon Road Organics this morning because I wanted to verify something, a story I remember him talking about on a fishing trip. And he was on this show not too long ago.
Yep.
John's the best.
And he said that he had planted 27 acres of cabbage. Now, cabbage is small plants. It's not a seed. 27 acres. And he said within 2 weeks, the deer had completely destroyed 40% of his crop. They came in at night after he would plant, and they would pull the plants out of the ground and eat them.
Put you right out of sustainability.
Now, the best that
Real
we
quick.
yeah, yeah. How do you come back from that?
You don't.
And that's why there's all these fences today. They're not just called fence.
Right.
They're called deer fence for a reason. But so the best John and I could figure is 1 acre of cabbage plants is 10,000 plants, and 40% of 27. Not a mathematician. It's over 10 acres. He lost 100,000 heads of cabbage in 2 weeks.
That's insane.
So, you know, if you look at the DEC say that we should have 20 to 25 deer per square mile to be healthy, for the square mile to support food, sustain 25 deer was the high end, 20 to 25.
Sounds right. Yeah.
And 1 square mile is 640 acres. Now, Vincent and I hunted 20 acres in Orient for a couple of years. And I would say every morning and every night, there were a minimum of 25 deer on 20 acres. Now, if we're supposed to have the max of 25 deer on 640 acres and they're on 20, how many deer are on the remaining 620 acres that make up a square mile?
Right.
We are
So overpopulated.
Suffolk County. The DEC says that we have between 27 to 40 deer per square mile. Not per square mile. More on the east end. We have more deer on the east end. The east end is basically from what I've seen in my experience, is from Laurel Lane, and yes, it is a square mile, 27 to 40. More on the east end. The east end, I think, is from Laurel Lane all the way to the ferry in Orient. And from what I've seen, that's a low number. We are way overpopulated.
Problem is, getting back to why you hunt, right? Why we hunt, why we have to hunt, right? Doug was saying earlier, we have to do it for survival, which is the reason why I wanted to learn how to hunt. But for someday, should we need to
You never know.
provide our own food source because the supermarket's closed?
Well, why are we so dependent
Right.
upon everyone else to feed us? You know, we saw with COVID, things were shut down and all this stuff. If we lose power, you know, and we don't have power for a while, and we don't have food, that's
Not
we're
good.
gonna have to figure it out.
But I have a bow and arrow, right? And I don't even need a gun. I have a bow and arrow. I can go and provide a meal for my family for a few days.
Right.
Yeah.
That's important.
You got to learn that skill. I think it's very important. It's the reason why I wanted to do this show is one, to raise awareness. People should learn how to hunt, right? For the what if, but more importantly, to see these deer on the side of the road is heartbreaking. I saw a van the other day on Main Road heading west somewhere around Peconic. They hit a fawn, spotted. So they were putting a blanket over it. It was a mother-daughter. They were like,
Oh yeah, they're so upset. Yeah,
it's a necessity we need to hunt.
I could say I've definitely hit at least 3 to 4 deers
You have.
in my life. Yep. One was in my MGB, and I hit it. It was a little convertible. Deer went flying over the car, and then this wren, like he literally jumped over the car. It was, and then other ones unfortunately passed away. But it's sad, and it's very expensive, you know, for the insurance. I damage the cars, you break your window, someone can get killed. You know, it's not only upsetting to kill something, but it's also upsetting to the after effects
Right.
that happen. And you know, unfortunately, we hear stories. Some people swerve out of the way and they end up killing somebody else,
On the road. Yeah.
or they die, and it's like it's tough, you know.
It's an unfortunate problem that needs addressing, and it needs to be done responsibly as well, right? Because we don't want stray bullets hitting anybody. Right?
Absolutely.
We live here, and our kids live here, so
Well, a lot of it is suburban too. So it's all, you know, it's all bow hunting, but like a lot of people don't understand that about like out here, like because the way I get permission to hunt properties is I just knock on people's door, and
You let them know who you are. That's a good
well,
thing.
I'm like, hey, you know, my name is Joey. You know, whether I live up the street or I grew up here, whatever the line may be, I'm kind of just like, you know, I'd be curious to see if you would, you know, give permission to, and I put emphasis on the bow hunt, you know, on your property. I see you have a couple of acres back here. I have like apps and stuff that'll tell me, you know, like
owns
who
what,
onyx what, how big they
You
have
use
it.
Onyx or
Yeah, Onyx, yeah,
I
exactly.
like that. It's what if anyone's listening.
real estate too.
Definitely good to subscribe
I
and
was
kind
gonna
of
say,
find
real
out who
estate guys
everybody
definitely
is. It
use that
says who
too.
owns the land. And,
They used to give you a phone number.
Yeah,
That would
really?
omit the knocking on the door thing. For
Oh, they
me.
got rid of that.
I like to show face too, you know.
Interesting.
That's where a good private investigation agency comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yo,
like
who is this
perimeter.
guy? I've been seeing this deer walking around.
You know, back to accidents a little bit. Channel 12 on November 3rd of 2022 had a show where they said Suffolk County leads New York State in deer-related crashes with 1,368 crashes. Suffolk County leads the entire state of New York in 2022 in crashes.
It's like 4 a day if you average it out, right?
And
That's nuts.
Kind of a lot.
and something else that, don't ask me why I do this, but from October 1st to December 31st, I count dead deer on the side of the road because I drive the North and South Fork for a living. And I usually get between 30 and 40, and that's just where I drive. I mean, that's really a low amount of the deer that get hit. But that's just what I see myself personally.
30 or 40 a day?
No. For the 3 months.
3 months.
For the 3 months that I see. But there's a DOT yard that I was pouring concrete in off of Sunrise Highway in Shinnecock Hills. And I looked off to the side in the parking lot, and there were 12 to 16 dead deer
Wow.
laying, bloated in the sun,
Yeah. It happens right here too. with
just laying
the
there.
cut jog, same thing with
And
dump.
That's terrible.
Yep.
Can I ask you, Chris? Because I mean, I honestly don't know. I am not a hunter myself. I'd love to learn. Just haven't had a chance. I haven't had a mentor to teach me. But is there a mating season? Why? Is there a reason why sometimes they're going crazy and running across the street? I mean, obviously, I understand Norfolk's being developed. There's less grounds for them to maybe forage where they once did. But is there like a season where they're in heat, and that's why like there's more of these incidents?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Once
November.
November.
Yep. They basically just run around crazy. They're only thinking about one thing.
Right, the hormones are.
So they're not really being as cautious as they are
Is that right?
in other parts of the year.
Wow.
especially
And their
Bucks,
movements are very erratic. Too.
Erratic, right?
Yeah, like October, January, and then, you know, January to October, I should say. They're pretty patternable.
Can I ask you a crazy question? What was there like a rumor there was something called like zombie deers where their eyes like were like they were acting erratic and like
Oh, maybe bit by that fly.
A couple
something.
of years ago, we had that disease outbreak. I forgot what it was. Chris, do you remember what that was?
I probably will not pronounce it correctly.
It's okay.
Hemorrhagic disease, but yes, it is a midge, and mostly near the water where deer are drinking, and they get bit by this midge. Now, even if they're dead within 48 hours.
Oh
and
my
I
God.
I found
There were
few.
guys losing a lot of deer on their
And
properties.
cattle.
Really?
And cattle, too.
Cattle,
Yeah.
they took
Mhm.
out
It
some
doesn't
cattle,
affect the meat, but it kills the deer very quickly. And we lost a lot of deer a few years ago, and now you really can't tell the difference.
Right.
Oh, that's
As far as the population. And we can't keep up as hunters. The average healthy doe has between 1 and 3 fawns
Wow.
a year. Average 2, I would say.
Yeah. 1 to 2. Yeah.
And we have no natural predators here with
Right.
the coyotes or wolves or
Yeah, the fox is scared of
bobcats.
the
Yeah, they don't go near each
You
other.
know, we are the only natural predator that the deer have here. And honestly, we get a larger and larger population of deer every year. We just can't
Not
keep
taking them
up.
out,
Yeah.
And we really could use some more access to different properties that we'll discuss in a little
Can I ask you,
little
what
bit.
would that look like? Like, could they extend? Is there a reason why hunting season's only a small period? Like, is there a reason for that? Like, are they like, oh, because we don't want you to overhunt?
Well, can we be conspiracy theorists?
Yeah.
No, we don't want to be. No. Why? How many tags can we get? We can get 2.
So buck tags, you get a buck tag regular season.
1 buck tag.
You can get either sex bow, or no, it's another buck tag, bow or muzzle loader. So if you hunt on Long Island, you can use them both here, but you can also use one if you go upstate for the regular season
Okay.
rifle. So that's your tag for up there. and then you can get unlimited no tags.
Is that right?
Like if you fill all your tags, you can go to, like, we go to the town here, the town of Southold, and they'll just be like, yep, here's a tag, I filled it. They just give you another one.
Because they
So
understand
it's
the
unlimited
situation.
because, well, yes, because I think it's just for the entire county.
And Joe, you mentioned something good, because I mean, if anyone's listening that's curious about, hey, I like to learn how to hunt, but I could bring it to you, Joe, and you donate meat as well? You donate?
Yeah, so I started a
that's
little
pretty
nonprofit
cool.
a few years ago, or actually last year. But basically, Southold Town has a donation program that I've been working with them for the past couple of years.
I love this. This is great.
A lot of the town hunters will shoot deer, and like the town has been pushing a lot on, we need to shoot some deer, population control, all of that. But some people go out and they'll shoot 25 deer a year.
Wow. Okay.
And they're like, we don't need all this. We've given away as much as we can.
Right.
You still want to go and, sit in a tree and enjoy the sport.
Right.
So they have a cooler locker where you can drop it off, and
That's
then I go
awesome.
and pick them up.
And you can feed people.
And we donate to the homeless shelters.
I love this. This is great.
And everywhere. Yeah.
This is great. Can I ask you a question? I know this because I raised large blacks that
Pigs.
Yeah, the pigs, large black pigs, and they were amazing. And I was lucky, a friend of mine gave them to me, Joe McCary, so kind, him and his family, and I wanted to raise them on the farm and do things. So I know I did some studies on that of how much you yield from a pig, and
It's a lot.
on
Almost everything. Yeah.
on a deer, it's pretty much
The deer. So I butcher the deer a little bit differently because it's not, farm raised like that, and their fat doesn't taste very good. Like on a lamb,
right.
you save all of
I love
that and
that.
you just leave it on.
Like a lamb,
There's a
oh my
lot
God,
of
yeah.
bone-in cuts. You have your rack of lamb. You have your shoulder,
Right.
extension of that rack.
Getting
A lot of the
hungry.
legs on them are bone-in.
Right.
For a deer, it doesn't really translate
Okay.
like that because you don't want the fat.
Because they're very lean to begin with, too, right?
Well, they're very lean to begin with, yes,
Yeah.
but like during the late season, they do have a lot of fat. Like I made deer ribs, I think, once, and like it just
just
leaves
wasn't
like
right.
it leaves like a
Oh.
waxy, like all
Yeah.
over your teeth.
Yeah. It wasn't the right.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it, yeah.
So I do a lot of it is just deboned, trimmed into whether it be roast, ground.
So there's not too
stewed
much
meat.
waste besides the fat on a deer. There's
The fat and then the bones, but you obviously take as much as you can.
Right.
But it depends. You have some waste because they're shot with arrows. You have the hemorrhaging and all
Right.
of that nobody wants to eat. Just the
Understood.
the aftermath.
Right.
And in order to put a good shot on it, unfortunately, like it's usually through the front shoulders, right, Chris, or just behind. But like that does ruin some of the meat. But that is the most ethical way to do it. And as
Right.
hunters, you want to do it the most ethical.
Right.
Way
Most
possible.
humane way possible. I
So there
agree
is a
with
little bit more waste on a deer than you would think.
that. Understood.
But, shot cleanly, perfectly,
Right.
it's between
Once it
20
goes
and
back to
35
responsible
pounds,
hunting,
depending
which-
on the size of the deer, yeah.
Right. Like Chris was talking about responsible hunting, and that's so important that if you're going to be trained to do this and you want to learn it, you do it the right way, right, Chris?
Yes, and speaking of donating venison, I donate 90% of the deer that I harvest,
Wow.
but mostly to individual people like Vincent.
Like me.
Yep.
Put me on that list.
Well, that's fine because I can
That's
only
cool.
eat so much, and so if there's anyone, I was hoping to do this for one of the reasons. I know you're not going to convince or change somebody's mind completely, but if somebody was on the fence a little bit and maybe someone they knew had asked them if they could hunt their property and they, kind of didn't feel comfortable about it, I was hoping that they might learn something. You can always look at something differently.
Yeah.
Maybe they learn something, they might feel a little bit more comfortable, and they might let that person hunt on their property. I'm available. You could contact me through the show if you wanted to.
Awesome.
The way I feel is if we can help feed some hungry, there's less car crashes, there'll be less Lyme disease, which we didn't get into at all with the ticks.
Yeah.
And by the way, deer eat on average 4 to 8 pounds of food a day. Now that's not captive deer, that's free range wild deer. Now, if you have so you say 5 pounds a day, you have 100 deer on your square mile. That's 500 pounds of food a day. Suffolk County just can't sustain that many deer with food. And the less deer there are, the more food there will be for the remaining herd, and they'll be healthier.
Healthy.
So we could feed people, cut back on accidents, cut back on Lyme disease, make the herd that's left healthier. I can feel good about myself with that because believe me, when I take an animal's life, it's never an easy thing
No.
to do, and I question myself often. But, this is one of the reasons I always feel that as difficult as it is, and it's not an easy decision, I believe it's the right one for me to do, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I think it is. It's a fine line. I have this conversation with my girlfriend. She goes, "You love all animals. You love your horses. You love horses. You love dogs. You love cats. You love pigs. How can you kill a deer?" And that's the question. It's like I'm not killing the deer to kill. I'm killing a deer so ultimately we could survive should we have to.
Right.
I'm doing it to learn. I'm doing it for practice. I'm not doing it for sport. And if you are doing it for sport, we still need the culling of the herd anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So if, like Chris said, if you are on the fence of having someone hunt your property, please reconsider. Please consider allowing someone to hunt, to cull the herd. And then another thing, too, is you're not-for-profit. Do you need donations?
We always love some donations. Yeah.
Yeah?
Further supports the cause. Absolutely.
So feeding the hungry, feeding the homeless,
Just lean, organic,
right?
good
meat,
stuff.
good,
Yeah.
pure health.
I love this.
Reach out through the show. Happy to put you in touch. Joe, would you tell us the name of your businesses, please? So
So the nonprofit is called East End Venison, and the the regular, just all the butchering that I do for a lot of just private hunters like Chris, for example, Vincent. I've done a few for you too.
Yep.
That is East End Wild Game. So they're separate. So I'm doing all the donations.
I love the shirt,
in
man.
East, yeah, this is the last clean one I
Yeah,
have.
you gotta
This is
drop
my
one
work.
off and put it on the wall. I
Yeah,
love it.
right?
That's awesome, bro.
But yeah, so those are the two. But it's just me. So
yep, it's a great process. Come with.
Where is it located? Is it in Mattatuck?
it's actually in my garage.
Okay.
I converted the whole thing to stainless
Wow.
steel.
Beautiful.
Butcher shop. Everything
awesome.
like that.
We're
That's
happy
so
to
great.
quietly provide your home address to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Go see
individual-
I think it's on Google still.
I'm like, and I can
that's
vouch that it's a very clean, sanitary
Yeah, you got to keep it clean.
Yeah.
setup.
Yeah.
That's awesome, though. I think what you guys are doing is great. I think that, like you said, there's always going to be an opinion out there, but I think that a lot of opinions are made without education. And I think that it's really important that people realize that what you're doing, when you understand, like Joe, you're talking about how you process. Chris was talking about, how all the things that go into it. When you think about everything, you start learning about it, you say, well, I guess I understand a little bit more. It's just so funny, though, through all the history and all the education we make kids go through from first grade to graduation and college, nothing's talking about really much about survival.
It's funny. A lot of my friends, I've been told this multiple times. They're like, if the world ever goes down, like, you're the guy that I'm sticking with. And I'm
My
like,
son's
why?
going to go back to Coyote Peterson, who used to watch on like YouTube as a kid, but I mean, the truth is, if you said to somebody tomorrow, hey, listen, there's no more electric, there's no more heat.
Right. What do you eat?
People would be like, all right, so who's gonna do this for us? Someone,
Yeah.
right?
Do you have the equipment?
Yeah. What do you have?
The tools.
What do you
right?
have?
Do you have
do
the
you have
know-how?
anything
Yeah.
ready
And
to
good
go?
luck trying to go out.
My
and
whole
get a deer.
graduating high school class is me and one other guy who hunted and fished. And I was like, I can't believe not. I mean, it's easier to like get some of your
Yeah.
friends to go fishing.
No, of course.
But I just couldn't believe there wasn't more.
It's-
Even in the grades above, below, like I can count, 10.
But think
going up
about
2
fishing
grades up
too.
and
Like,
down.
I used to, I love the whole Lieblein family from Puerto Egypt. They're just amazing people. And, there's pictures of Mr. Lieblein, and I love him. He's such a tough guy, in his 80s, he's still a brick. And there's so many people coming out from the city and all over to go fishing. And they used to rent these fishing boats. They used to rent out of Puerto Egypt years ago. And you see all these bigger fish and like families, fathers, sons, daughters, wives, the whole family was fishing together. And you don't really see. And then back when I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it stopped. There was Captain Marty's in New Suffolk, and there was more other fishing stations. And you don't even see people fishing the way they once did. You don't see people out there, just
Everybody thinks it's boring.
Yeah, but
You
it's
sit
not.
around waiting for a
you're not
bite.
doing
It's
it.
so
You know,
great.
it's the same thing as
Yeah,
hunting. You're sitting
right.
around waiting for a deer to walk by. They're like, let me just be on my phone the whole time.
Right, but how great
and
is it?
be
you know,
constantly entertained.
You get to
know?
spend that time with your family member and just hang out, and you're like, I
Talk
take
about whatever.
whatever,
Yeah.
and it's just nice. I mean, listen, I'm not a big sports guy, so I really can't interject when people are talking sports. But when anyone could talk about, oh, it's pretty out today. This is nice, and spend a little time with your kids or whomever you're with. But it's nice to fish. It's nice to relax, and my son cast it and he hooked me in the ass. Like, you know what I mean? Like stuff happens, but I still you laugh and you say, I love you. It's okay. This hurts, but
we'll get out.
we
and
laugh
then
and
I'll
we
say, "I
make
love you."
memories and but you know what? You got to be out there. You got to be out there enjoying life. Chris, you said something so beautiful. Like, you're sitting out there. It's not even about the hunting part. It's about the nature you saw. It's about birds landing on your bow. You're seeing foxes. You're seeing wildlife. You're seeing crows. You're seeing owls. Turkeys. I mean, people spend all day swiping on their phone, looking at a few minutes of everything. If we just went out and just sat outside and just looked around and shut up for a few minutes, how beautiful life is, right?
Well, yes, and you reminded me of several things. I hope I can remember them all. I hunt a spot in South Holden between Sound Avenue and the main road. And if you get there on Sunday morning at 5 a.m., you wouldn't know. It's hard to tell how quiet that it is. And then you start hearing the rubber tires on Route 48 coming down Sound Avenue. And then around, 7, 8 o'clock, a lawnmower starts up, and then a weed whacker,
Right.
and then a leaf blower. and it's so peaceful and quiet at 5 a.m. on a Sunday. It's beautiful.
Yes.
And you don't realize how loud it is in your normal everyday life
Right.
because there's just so much noise. But I'm glad that you mentioned the fishing because I was thinking of another thing today, and I'm also a bit of an avid fisherman. When I love to catch the biggest fish on the boat if I get lucky, but no one and a fish will sit in a bucket for 3 hours and slowly lose oxygen
Right.
and can't breathe until it dies. No one feels bad when a fish dies.
Right.
But you feel bad about a deer because they just pull on your heartstrings. They're such a social animal.
Yeah.
And they just really get to you. And look, they're both God's creations.
Yes.
And it's the same. They're both animals that you're taking their life. But
Yeah, it's the
why
same
does
thing.
why does one bother you that much and the other
Thank
one
you,
doesn't?
Disney.
Right.
Bambi.
Right. Bambi.
Well, that's what it is.
Right. But you're right about that. But it's so important that people still, like you said, fishing, it's the same thing. It's taking a life. And I think it's how people, what they know, if most people have fished and they're like, can accept that.
And let's go back to Bambi. Sorry, Doug.
Yeah.
We'll go back to Bambi. You get unlimited doe tags. Unlimited. You only get 2 buck tags.
Is that right?
Yeah. So the state is telling you
We got a problem.
we got a problem,
Right.
right? If you,
Bambi's in
we
heat.
wouldn't have a problem if you could only get 1 doe tag.
Right.
Well, you also talked about the season, and the bow hunting season is from October 1st through January 31st. And then most of January is also gun season. But there is a nuisance season out here in South Holden Riverhead from February 1st till September 31st. So you can hunt all year round if you have a nuisance permit. And I do, not in the summer because it's too hot and
And the ticks.
the ticks and
Grass is all long.
and it's hard to process a deer quickly.
Right, because
And
the temperature.
Joe doesn't have his freezer on in the summer because he doesn't have enough deer to support
Right.
running the
whole year
electricity.
round,
But
yeah.
you can hunt all year round if you're on a nuisance tag. And just another thing you're talking about, I think we're losing, like kids these days, I don't think are being taught how to hunt.
No, they're not.
So we have less and less people being taught how to hunt, and we have more and more deer every year.
Right,
Look,
populating.
we don't want to eliminate all of the deer in Suffolk County.
No.
We just want to bring it into a balance
And a healthy population.
in a healthy population.
I love, I
That-
agree with
that's
that.
all.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And not for nothing too, like having too many deer. Not, I don't mean to bring trophy hunting into this because that's not what this whole podcast is about. But if you have too many deer and they're eating all of this food, right? That means less per individual deer. So because of the genetics and the way that it works, if there's not enough food, the bucks specifically don't get to express their full antler potential. So if you're a trophy guy too, like I've seen it over the years too, you see less and less and less of like those real big,
Right.
big deer that a lot of those trophy guys are looking for.
Joe, can I ask you a question? I'm sorry to
Go
interrupt
ahead.
you, because I'm not a hunter, so I don't know the protocol. But I know most people worry about liability. So, like, as somebody who wants to hunt on someone's property, is there like a rider, or do you go there with them saying, "Hey, here's a waiver of liability if I hunt on your property, I
I
won't sue
believe
you"?
there's a law in place that if you give somebody permission to hunt on your property, you're not liable for them getting hurt on your property.
Or if they hurt anyone else.
Yeah, I can pull it up. My friend
No,
knows
I'm
what it
just
is. I don't know
curious.
what it is, but there
I'm
really
curious.
is no liability is the thing. And I try to explain that to people. And they're like, but my dog, my cat. And I'm like, but it's not like an automatic,
Right.
somebody up in a tree, something moves and they shoot and they don't look.
I think
There's a
people are
person up
picturing
there.
Rambo jumping out of a tree.
Yeah, like it's not like that at all.
No.
How many times have I been out with Chris and there's a nice buck on the field and we don't decide to take it because one, we didn't have the shot.
That's
Might have been a little bit too far. So when you have that type of hunter on your property,
Selective.
they're not going to be shooting at a dog because they didn't shoot at the buck that they couldn't get at a distance.
Yeah.
well said.
Everybody's
Well
like, my
said,
kids run around outside, all this. And I'm like, but there's a person up in the tree that, if you have somebody who's responsible or their dog or their cat or whatever, like you don't even pick up your bow. Like I hunt with, you said you hunt with yours on your lap, but it's a lot of motion and a lot of movement. Like think about the thought process that goes on.
And you got to do quietly.
You have to reach over, grab your bow, get it off the hook. You have to move to like there's a lot that goes
Basic
into it.
movement
not-
is
It's
so
not
hard.
It's not just like
Yeah.
oh, there it is, bang, done.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into
Yeah,
it
they,
before
and
that.
they could hear and they know what's going on. Then that's
And they
stupid.
teach you in the hunter safety class too. They're like, you have to be aware of your target, be aware of what's behind your target, be aware of what's in front of your target.
No, and even the position that the deer has
That
to
the
be
deer is
in
in.
for you to make that
proper
correct,
shot.
proper, most humane shot. So it's not, you're not just, oh, there's a deer.
And it comes with experience too, I will say, being in the woods. Because when you start out, you're all excited and you got a deer come in on you.
There's a deer on the
And you wanna, to do it. But like now I don't shoot anything over 12 yards, 10 yards. I like to get close to them. I like to be as close as I can. But I'll let them walk around in front of me until I have
The right shot.
what I'm looking for.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times they'll walk around in front of me, the deer that I've been hunting for 3 years.
Right.
It's there, and I just don't have the shot. Happened to me last year. Heartbreaker. But I didn't want to do it like that,
Right.
I
love to hear that.
And he wound up seeing me and Brent off, and now we're going to have to find him again this year.
Yeah.
But like that's, that's just the game that it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Chris.
I had a friend who wanted a doe last year, and I had all intentions of taking one if the opportunity presented itself. And I had a doe come in, and the shot was presented itself, and this doe was eating acorns and grass, and I ended up watching this doe for 20 minutes, and when it finally presented itself a shot to me, I couldn't do it. I wanted to take the apple. I wanted to take the apple out of my pocket and throw it to the deer so he can. But I didn't want to give up where I was, so I
Right.
didn't. But I just
want to
sat,
just feed
I
him
just
instead.
sat and watched. I have to feel it. It has to feel right. Most of the times that I hunt, I don't harvest anything.
Right.
That's the thing. It's a lot of waiting around. Same thing as fishing. It's a lot of waiting around.
But just to backspace on the liability, I have something on my phone that I took a photo of and I kept. Homeowners, you can sue any homeowner you want. You can sue anyone you want. Doesn't mean you're going to get anything. But unless they're charging you, leasing the property or charging you to hunt in their property, they're not liable if you get hurt.
right.
If they start charging you, then they have a liability. And so just and it's best to post your property.
Yeah.
To keep other trespassers off. Don't charge anyone, and you're not liable for if anyone gets hurt.
Let's go into one other thing about responsible hunting too. And if I'd like to state for the record, if there's a doe on the field and there's also a fawn with that doe, or 2 or 3, that's a no-go. Right? I wouldn't take that shot. What about you guys?
I normally, I don't like to, possibly in a nuisance hunting situation, which I wasn't really planning on getting into, but I do nuisance hunt, and the farmers in the vineyards,
They want
losing.
They can't have them. Yeah.
No, they also want the fawns too.
Yes,
they can't. They can't
they're
have any of it.
losing a lot of money,
Nuisance is a
and
difference,
what they
yeah.
do is to allow me to if I nuisance hunt for 8 months a year, then they allow me to bow hunt the other 4 months. That's kind of the deal that we have.
It's a fair trade.
Look, I can't tell you that I've never taken a fawn, but I don't like to. And that's only under
nuisance
but
capacity.
nuisance hunting is not regular season hunting. It's a different animal.
Yeah.
It's for like a different reason.
Right.
If a homeowner, well, not a homeowner, if a landowner is giving me permission to nuisance hunt, they expect me to take some deer off of their property. Yeah. That's the deal that we make.
I could be sitting here saying what I do, and that's a different story because I'm not in that position. So I understand that.
But under a regular 4-month hunting season, yes, I really try to not.
Yeah. I've done it. I only say it because that's what we did. We never took. I didn't. You didn't. I never saw.
Well, you try not to, and sometimes you don't know.
So you get excited. Oh my god! And you knew. And
Well, it's very situational too. If you're a guy who doesn't get out that much, you're getting late into the season,
right. You got.
And you want to put something in your freezer for the year,
That's a good point.
then you do it.
But the truth is also, by November, when the majority of the rutting is done and the does were in heat, if you take a doe in December or January or February, like into nuisance, most of those does are pregnant. They're not showing.
Right.
So,
What's worse?
and-
right. Yeah.
but that's what the DEC wants you to do because you're taking more deer
Right.
out of the herd, leaving more food for the rest of the herd so they're healthier.
Right.
And by the way, you were talking about bucks and the food. Dominant deer, the most healthy and the biggest deer, if there's a shortage of food, they get the food.
Yeah.
They don't let the fawns eat.
Right.
Okay, they eat till they're done, and if there's anything left, okay, and if it's not, I don't know. I don't think that they care.
No, it's like the biggest mahi on the pot. Always eats first too.
that's how
Yeah,
it
right.
is. And, the strong survive.
Yeah.
So, and we haven't had any bad winters
No.
in a couple of years. Wait till we have a really bad winter and see how many fawns die because they don't have enough food and it's so cold.
Yeah.
Sad. Well,
So,
I'd like to thank you guys for coming on. Remember, donations.
Yes,
yeah,
please.
and any
Please.
if you allow us to hunt on any of your properties, I would donate any deer that was harvested to the food bank.
That's great.
And at least it'd be going to a good place.
Yep.
Well, I don't know who's listening to this podcast either, but people need to know that that's an option too.
That is
Because I think that a lot of people who don't know about it
Right.
are like, well, I don't need any more. Like, I want to go, but like, I can't, shoot anything. But like, there is
donate
an outlet.
deer, right? And not only monetary donations.
And can we buy
Donations of deer. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, like you can literally bring me a full deer that you shot, gut it out, and I will, write out the paperwork for it, and it's taken care of off of your hands.
Wow.
Or you could pay Joe to butcher it and then come pick it up a week later after it's been in the cooler for yourself.
Yep, like I do.
Or for your friends, like Vincent does.
I do it for my dog. My dog eats venison as a
It's a good eating dog.
and so
You bougie over there.
I keep the good cuts for myself, backstrap, you know,
Yeah.
tenderloin.
The nice thing about it is you can do whatever you want with it. Like, you're not going to go to the butcher shop
Right.
and be like, I'm going to get my dog this ground meat that's $13 a pound.
Right.
Like, it's, you know, nobody
Nobody
does
does
that.
Right.
You know, with the venison is a good thing where you can have the nice stuff,
Lean,
the
healthy,
equivalent of
clean.
your ribeyes, your New York strips, and, you know, all of that off of a deer.
That's
for yourself. And the rest, you know, if you don't want the
Moonshine,
ground or whatever, you know, you can use it for the
and
dog.
wild game. We got to
Yeah,
check
we
it
do a
out.
lot.
Nothing goes to waste.
Now,
Yep.
I love that.
Great show, guys. Thank
Guys,
you so
thank you
much.
so
thank you
much.
guys. This was fun.
Appreciate you having us.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you.